Well, this is JC. I finally got around to finishing chapter 30, and so uh, uh, I'll just start right in on it. This is chapter 30 of my book entitled Todd. Leslie and Joe chatted for 10 or 15 minutes before Joe said she had another call and asked Les to hang on. No, go ahead and take care of your business, and I'll see you within the next day or so, I promise. She hung up the phone and smiled a big smile at Todd. How great this is, she said excitedly. We started out to be very good friends and we're getting very close. Then her dad got killed. That threw a kink in everything for her. I called her, even went over to see her once, but she didn't answer my calls or the door. I can only imagine how she felt, the sadness and loss from losing her only person in the world. And she added, I'm so fortunate to have two wonderful parents and healthy too. Yes, you are, replied Todd. Oh, I didn't think, started Les with a frown. Oh, it's okay. You are lucky. And so was I for a while, as strange as it was, but whatever did or didn't happen with me, I accept. We can't change was, were, did, or didn't, or should have. We live with it. And if I were lacking something I couldn't control, I can't worry about it. There ain't no bad stuff going on here. And he smiled at Les. Now Todd called Chuck. He answered the phone on the second ring with, This is Chuck Bartlett, hardware hauler extraordinary. What can I do for you today? Todd chuckled audibly and said, Well, hardware hauler extraordinary, are you ready to go to work? Yes, I am, replied Chuck. I don't have any permits or anything yet, but I can still haul freight. Okay, said Todd, I'll go ahead and put you on the payroll for now. I'll make up a list and email it to you with my resale number and card number, credit card number, so all you'll need to do is pick up the trailer and head for Denver. I'll call the warehouse and okay it for you to pick up my order. Todd told Chuck where to pick up his trailer. He told Chuck he would get everything ready at Go with Joe by phone, so all he'd need to do is pick up the trailer and go. Todd told Chuck to get receipts for everything he might need on the road, and he would reimburse him for everything. Todd asked Chuck if he had enough money to make the trip or would he need expense money. Chuck assured Todd he had what he needed for now. Todd asked if he would rather leave tonight and spend the night in Denver or wait until tomorrow to leave. Chuck said he'd rather leave tonight. That way he'd get in and out of the warehouse earlier and get back to Belton sooner. Todd said okay, and then they said goodbye and hung up the phones. Todd took his list and everything else Chuck would need and emailed it to Chuck. Leslie had been listening to Todd's end of the conversation and was smiling her approval. Her mind was racing 1,000 miles an hour, something not unnoticed by Todd. Okay, said Todd, go ahead. What is it? You'll think I'm crazy, she said to Todd and waited for his response. Todd said nothing, so Leslie continued. Things are really starting to roll now. First it was you and Betsy and me, then us and Junior and Jim, then Jake, then Chuck, and now, guess what I'm thinking? Now Todd responded, you're right, it does sound crazy. But what the hey? We might be on the verge of a greatness, business-wise, that is. Go ahead, you tell it, baby girl. What if we spread out into the equipment rental business too, along with hardware and hauling? I mean, it makes sense. Every aspect of all of these comes together cohesively in what we're doing. Joe's running her business alone. At least I think she is. Something to think about, said Todd. Right now I got to call Joe back and set things up for Chuck. He called Joe's rentals and Joe picked up on the first ring. Todd explained what he needed and he told her he needed it tonight. Joe said okay. So Todd told her Chuck Bartlett would be coming over to pick up the trailer they had discussed, and he gave her his credit card number. Todd said it would be a good idea to have insurance on the trailer this first time until he could arrange for full-time coverage with his own insurance company. After they had finished their dealing, Todd said, oh, by the way, Chuck is not the man I had in mind, so go slowly, okay? Joe laughed aloud. How did you know I was thinking about that, she asked. I know everything, Todd replied with a chuckle. Then Todd said, just kidding. There was silence on the line for a moment, and Joe said, I don't believe that. Todd asked, you don't believe I know everything? Joe hesitated, then said, No, I don't believe you were just kidding about knowing everything. Todd looked at Leslie and shook his head, and he said, "Oh, no, not another one." Chuck pulled his pickup into the rental lot. He went inside the office, and Joe stepped up to the counter. "Hello, Chuck," she said. "May I help you?" Chuck smiled broadly. "I sure hope so," he said. "What you got in the way of trailers?" Joe said, "I have a 16-foot by 5-foot covered trailer that might just fill the bill for you." "I must have called ahead," said Chuck with a smile. "Someone did," answered Joe. She came from behind the counter and extended her hand, and Chuck took it in a handshake. She said, "Come on and I'll show it to you." And they exited the building and walked toward the back lot. Joe stopped in front of a trailer and said, "This is it, if you think it'll do the job." "I think it's just right," replied Chuck. "Oh, I'll need a ball for the hitch, too." "No problem," said Joe. "Come on and I'll get it for you, and we'll get this done so I can go home. I don't usually stay open this late, but I was expecting you, so I made an exception." They went back inside the store and selected the right side ball for the hitch on Chuck's pickup. He said, "I can sign the paperwork now if you like. Then you can leave if you want to. I can take care of hooking up and everything." "It's okay," said Joe. "I kind of like staying late. It hasn't exactly been Grand Central Station around here lately." And she gave Chuck a big smile. "Okay," said Chuck with a smile. "Go ahead and hook it up. My truck is a 5-speed with a Cummins diesel and a Jake brake. Easy on the clutch. This is a high torque." "Whoa, whoa," said Joe. "I said I'd like to stay late, not work late." And they both got a laugh out of that. Chuck hooked the trailer up while Joe finished the paperwork. He came back inside the office just as she was finishing. "Well, Charles, just sign here and I'll take charge of the rest of your life, or at least an arm and a leg. Oh, Mr. Daniels said to add insurance to this too, so I did. Is that all right?" "Yeah," said Chuck. "Charles, eh? My mother's the last one to call me that." "Your mother, eh?" asked Joe. "How about your wife? You must be a Chuck." "Yeah," said Chuck. "Actually, Dana calls me Honey, but I'm Chuck to everyone else," he said with a grin. Chuck looked right into the eyes of Joe. He said, "I feel a little loneliness here, am I right?" Without waiting for her to answer, Chuck said, "I might have just the perfect man for you." "Really?" said Joe. "That's what Mr. Daniels said." "Mr. Daniels was his father. This Mr. Daniels' name is Todd." "Well, who is this mystery man?" asked Joe. "Sorry," said Chuck. "I can't tell you yet. I'll leave that up to Mr. Daniels, Todd." Joe faked a pout and said, "All right, Mr. Bartlett, whatever you say." Chuck said, "I guess I'd better get on the road. Got a ways to go tonight and an early start tomorrow." He extended his hand for a handshake, and Joe responded in kind. "Okay, Chuck, see you when you get back." Chuck climbed into his Dodge Ram pickup. He checked the mirrors, pulled out on the street, and headed for Denver. And this is the end of chapter 30 of my book entitled Todd. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll come back for chapter 31. So until then, this is JC saying, I'll see you down the road if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise.